I intentionally have the window cracked ever so slightly because I am stranded on the side of the road, but you'll learn more about that in next episode. Basically, in a nutshell, I'm stranded at the side of the road, waiting for emergency roadside maintenance. Now, why am I doing an update now and not earlier? Well, because I actually did record the previous episode of Alley Docked, and it ends up being that I had a computer issue with my audio. It did not record sound. So I recorded for 56 minutes, and the sound didn't turn out. But it's probably all the better because I was extremely tired, and it was another one of those that it had been a long week. I reversed my sleep schedule to get back into day mode so I could, when I was off, and then I had just got through reversing it back to night mode, did a day, and was extremely tired. But again, you'll learn more about that later. Officially, I have been doing the trucking thing for a year now. And I mean, what can you say? That's it's been quite an adventure. It's kind of cool to say that, I have another skill and that I've been doing this for a year. It's at the same time, though, it's like, it's been a roller coaster of a year. I guess it's because it seems like when you're on the road and you're doing this, it seems like a long time. Even though in the grand scheme of things, you talk to truckers and stuff and you hear about on the CB radio, they've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and they're just like, oh, you're a little young pup. Nobody online that's posting in any of the forums is saying, oh yeah, I'm only a few months into this, unless they're brand new saying, looking for support. But hey, it is what it is, right? Let's start going through my list, because I've been keeping a list of things, because basically that's what this has turned into, is a weekly update. Without me being over the road with a constantly changing schedule, the updates are a little don't need to happen nearly as often. It's only I'm only 5 days out, with the exception of that 1 week when I did a 6-day week. The big takeaway for this week is that the loaders need to be more responsible in taking ownership of bad loading. I've run into quite a bit of this the past couple of weeks, and last week it was even worse. One of the big things that they're doing is they're stacking pallets too high and then not wrapping the plastic wrap all the way around them as much. So the top 1.5 feet or something like that, the top layer or two, sometimes is falling off, just shifting regular, because you can't, if you stop with the plastic, there's nothing that keeps everything contained. So it's stacking up higher and higher, but the momentum of you driving, even if you take turns slow, it's gonna cause layers to fall. And that's happened too many times. I feel bad for the associates that are unloading me, because they have to run into that. They have to pick that stuff back up and put it back up on top. It's really annoying for them, I'm sure. Let's see, aside from that, what else is there? Collapses that happened. I mean, another thing is that I've run into is that some of these layers, they stack it up high enough that they're stacked even with the bottom of a reefer, and then they continue to stack up on top afterwards. You could tell, because when they load up the pallet barely like half an inch off the ground, they're not able to pull it off without having to take loads off top. And some of these people are short, so they're trying to get stuff from the very top. It's very difficult for them. And so if they pull it straight off, they're knocking over the top layer, and they did not get that pallet in there properly. They did not get the pallet in there with stuff on top like that. That was added in afterwards. So it's kind of cheating when you don't wrap it up all the way. And that may be one of the reasons why pallets are not wrapped all the way to the top, even though I don't think that's always the case, because sometimes they're stacked perfectly even, but they're just stacked in there, and then there's been a collapse. Sorry it's loud, but I would love to be able to turn off the four-ways, but I can't, because that's when there's a emergency roadside maintenance person going to be here anytime. Well, I started off my week on Monday with a guy with the office saying, can you help this guy? And I said, what's his deal? And he said, he's trying to fuel up. I'm like, fuel up? Figured it was a reefer thing, but no, it ends up being that he didn't manage his fuel properly, so he was completely out. Did not even have enough diesel to get to the nearest truck stop, which is about 30 miles away. Bad planning. I was not able to figure out how to do it because it's supposed to be on the comp data card, but I couldn't figure. I don't know. I've never run into that. I always manage my fuel properly. I was also really tired on that Monday. I started off, I was doing fine, but throughout the day, it was really, really tiring. I was extremely tired. And, by the time I was on my way back, I wouldn't say I was unsafe. I would just say that I was having a hard time focusing. If I got to the point where I felt wobbly at all, I would have pulled over. But it's you're just tired, oh, come on. It just wasn't happening. It was just slow. But got back, got another load, then went back out. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. When there was rain on that Monday, so it was sprinkling a little bit, but it didn't really start pouring until I go to uncouple the trailer after the first run and to set it and to couple for the second run. That's when it decided to do a torrential downpour. And then as soon as I get coupled up, it's the rain just dissipates. It started up only just to rain on me. It was good times. And then it didn't really rain the rest of the time. It was kind of crazy. One thing that really hit me hard this last week is that there's a flaw in the refrigeration system. I can very easily set the reefers, or anybody can, to cool. But if it drops to a certain temperature and then it stays there, you can't tell the difference in product between that and someone who allows the temperature to go up too high and then cools it down afterwards. So sometimes it can take 2 or 3 hours for it to get to the first stop. And if the reefer wasn't working properly, then it can take a while to cool down. This came to a head because I was on Monday. I ended up having an issue with my with the reefer. I ended up having an issue with the temperature was going up. It went from 8 degrees to 14. My very first run of the week was a frozen dairy. Dairy's supposed to be, or frozen's supposed to be at negative 20 degrees, but it was 8 degrees, and the yard won't let you off if it's above 10. And it had gone up during my pre-trip time. It had gone up by 14 from 8 to 14, so it went up by 8 degrees. So I had to go over to the shop and talk to them about that. And they came and looked at it. It required taking me down for about 45 minutes to an hour while the tech had me uncouple at his at the place, and he went through, and it ends up being that it just needed some Freon. But still, it got me on the road about an hour and a half into my day, which was a bit annoying. But, and actually I take that back. That wasn't my Monday. Monday and Tuesday were pretty easygoing. No real updates, nothing really to report there. It was my Wednesday that this happened. And I know this because I ended up having an issue later on in the day. Really, to be completely honest, the only real takeaway from Monday and Tuesday was that I was in the same trailer. The first run that I did on Monday was the same trailer I used at my first run on Tuesday. So that was kind of cool, I guess. I was like, hey, I know you. But anyway, so after on my Wednesday, I went and picked up my trailer and found these issues and stuff. I got on the road after about an hour and a half. The tech was like, you want me to wrap this up? I'm like, yes, please. So I hit the road. It was about an hour and a half of downtime waiting. I got going and I unloaded my first load. It was pretty fine. I got to my second load and ended up being the Walmart was right next to a Lowe's. And it was right as they were starting to close because it wasn't very far. I was my first runs were to Oakland and then to Gainesville, if memory serves. Those were both Georgia. And the Gainesville location, my GPS had me go into an area that was had me go in the side entrance. Well, if I go in the side in the front, that takes me in the front of the entrance of the Lowe's, which ends up being that there's like, it's all car entrance. You can't really go in there because you're gonna drive over and maybe hit a sign. And if I go in to the right, there's a barn there and all the lawn stuff out there. So if I go in to the left, I'm gonna wipe out a sign and go over the ground. So that was bad. So I looked ahead, and straight ahead of me there was a subdivision. And I'm like, I hope that there's another entrance. So I end up creeping on down the way, because this is like right as this Lowe's and Walmart are finishing up for the day. Everyone's trying to get out of there, so it's barricaded. Ends up being also, I see right as I come to a stop and put on my four ways, because I was going to get out and look at everything, but knowing there was no real way, I wasn't going to be backing up. Then I see blue lights behind me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass. If I have to pull over with the four ways, just past this entrance exit, then I will, and then I'll sit there with the four ways until it clears out, and then I'll back up and see what I need to do there. It ends up being that I pull forward just a little bit, and the blue flashing lights went away. I guess it was a police officer that was just passing by or something, but I saw the lights, and I was like, I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to move on. And it ends up being that right before you got to the subdivision, there was a pull-in. So, and that pull-in was right there behind the Lowe's, and it went straight across to the Walmart, which was nice, because I've been to this Walmart before, and there was no issue with the GPS routing me to the right entrance. But this time, it routed me in another way, so I ended up having to get in the other way through the Lowe's, but ended up being fine. Unloaded that one, and then I went back to get my second load. My second load was my first load was only like 100 some odd miles. My second load was closer to 200, maybe a little bit over. And it ended up not being a big deal, because I arrived at 1:55, fully expecting my location to be one that says we're sending everybody to lunch for an hour at 2, but they ended up not being. So they were able to serve me. I got out of there and got to my next location, which was and the lady was like just finishing. She was finishing up her lunch, and she was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and log back in and take care of you. I'm like, thank you so much. Come to find out from our office, they're not supposed to take a lunch. Walmarts are not supposed to be taking an hour-long lunch. There's always supposed to be there to unload us when we arrive. Good luck trying to convince a Walmart of that when it's like, no, our scheduled lunch break. Employees won't go back on the clock because they're scared of their management. Management says no, you're going to take a lunch. They got to do it. So anyway, I got back in from everything, and it was just about 6 a.m. And the office says, can you help us out? I said, because I was just logging in to do my post trip, and I realized that they had called me, and since I was parked right across from the office, I go on in and turn in my paperwork, and they said, can you help us out? I said, with what? And they said, we have to do a one-stop Buford. We have a one-stop Buford. Can you do it? And I was like, geez, if I get there and there's another truck there, I could be waiting there a long time. And I was just like, I guess let me have it. So I hit the road, and I got to the Buford. There was no other truck there, so they unloaded me pretty quickly, and it was a Sam's Club. And I got out of there and got back. I ended up editing my hours, though, because if you recall, I started off my day on that Wednesday with a reefer-related issue. So I edited back an hour of my hours that were just sitting there that I was basically down. I started my shift, and I hadn't done anything except a pre-trip when I had to take the truck in, the trailer in for reefer maintenance. So I didn't see a problem in the world with me editing that time back, because I was, whether I do it on the clock or I do something off the clock, it's still me, and it's just right around the corner. So I went ahead and edited my hours to pull back my pre-trip time, just adding on an hour. So I basically gave me my maintenance time back. This is one of the reasons why you should go into yard move. So if you pre-trip, go to yard move when you go around the shop, when you go around the yard, because if you go into the drive line, you can't edit those hours. And I know that you've heard me say in the past, editing hours is bad when you use it to gain back time, but it ends up being that all I need was 20 minutes. We've talked about this in the past where the FMCSA and the DOT has these rules in effect, and I get it. But at the same time, I could have very easily extended my clock with the macro that allows me to extend my clock to 16 hours, which, by the way, I did fill out. Since I had the drive hours, I filled it out. It's just, it only goes into effect, I think, if you're less than 15 minutes of time. At least that's the way it was last time. And so I looked at it and said, either way, I'd be doing the same drive. So I might as well edit my hours and get that time back because it would be the same result regardless. I'd be driving in that same time. So I did that. I did 3 stops that one day, and that ended up being kind of nice. One thing that really hit me hard that day, though, that Wednesday, was that with Schneider, if somebody sent me a message from the office, it would pop up on the tablet and it would tell me there was a message, and it would start to give me the first few words. If Martin sends me a message, it goes through and says a new important message has arrived. And then by the time I come to a stop, it's barricaded in there with the whole, don't forget to get your load straps and contact the office if the consignee refuses the load. So it gets lost in there. So if there's a message for the office telling me that there's a road closure up ahead or bad weather, I'm not going to necessarily see it unless I come to a stop at a traffic light or something like that and start going through the tablet, which is technically illegal. You're not technically supposed to mess with the tablet or any such device if you are driving. And that means if you're on the road at all. Everyone does it if you're at a traffic light, but you shouldn't. So the only way I would see something like that is if I get to a stop, go in and go into my tablet, which case I could miss whatever message that is. So that's an annoying flaw. It should allow you to pop up. It should allow you to pop up the message and see what it is you're looking at. That would be really helpful. Okay, so that was Wednesday. Thursday was pretty cool. It was not really a very big day for me. It was I did 2 stops. First up in Aiken, South Carolina. They were pretty close to each other, and both of those locations were fast. They were on the ball, so I was very pleased by that because there wasn't a whole lot of wasted time. I got there, they were ready for me, they unloaded me, and then when I got my second load, it ends up being that it was to a Sam's Club in Duluth. And then there was a second Sam's Club that was in Hiram, Georgia. That Duluth location, I tell you, that was highly annoying to me because I got there at about 4:40 a.m. And they said that I can't let you in. I'm like, why not? And they said, we don't have a manager on duty. There was no manager. There was supposed to be 3 managers on duty, and there was only 1, and that manager was in the front. So I said, should I walk in the front then? And he's like, well, the person that's supposed to be unloading, he's not even here yet. So I'm like, great. I said, I have 2 pallets. Should I go in? He says, let me see if I can find the manager, get the manager's key. He disappeared. I decided I was going to give him a couple of minutes. He ends up coming back with the key pretty quickly and lets me in. And I said, I have 2 pallets. If you can unload it even with the pump up, that'd be awesome. That way I can hit the road. And he's like, yeah, I could probably help you with that. And then somebody else ended up seeing him, and he's one of the forklift drivers. He ended up seeing, and they unloaded me. He unloaded me really fast, and then I was on the road. The second location in Hiram was just same old story. It was just when you go to these Sam's Clubs, doesn't matter the Sam's Club, they almost always function the same way. They unload you, and they have to take each pallet all the way to the far side of the building, wherever the coolers happen to be. So that takes 2 to 3 minutes per pallet. If there's multiple stacked, they usually will unload and unstack them and then take each one of those back individually. I would much prefer them to take the entire pallet back and then unstack it there if they're going to stack them up and needing to unstack them off of one load and do it that way. But whatever. I mean, they got to do what they got to do, right? It just means that our day drags out. I would love nothing more than if they could unload it, hand it to someone else who runs it. But they each seem to have their own tasks. Like my loader or my unloader will be there and then there'll be someone else that is unloading another trailer. So, even though I would think that they could tag team it, it would seem to be take precedent or a priority if there was a truck driver there. Like some of these locations, I pull up there, and most of them they'll pull off. They'll have one person pull off, and they'll just move it 30 feet down the way, and someone else will pick it up with a pump up jack, and they'll take it to the back. Sometimes there's multiples. I really like it when there's multiples, but in this case there wasn't. Highly annoying. Now this day, the next day, Friday, I come to the realization that this was my 10th job of the week, my first one, and it was 4 stops in South Carolina, and they were pretty smooth sailing. The reason this is one of those things that made me aware and alerted me to it was because if you do 8 jobs in a week, you get a $50 bonus. You do 9 jobs in a week, you get a $100 bonus. You do 10 jobs in a week, you get a $200 bonus, and 11 or more jobs in a week, and you get a $300 bonus. So the idea of doing one additional job that day and getting an additional $100 for doing that seemed highly appealing. So I was like, I mentioned to the office when I got there, if there's anything you could do to get me a job that I could accomplish after these 4 stops in South Carolina, maybe a shorty, I'd appreciate it. And they just nodded and said, we'll see what we can do for you. Those 4 stops were fine. It was when I got to the Sam's again. Sam's Club in McDonough and then Morrow. So I had to split my load between 2 locations. Both of them, I'll tell you this, the same process. You pick up, you have to move each pallet back and then come back. So highly annoying, very, very slow. Another thing is both of these lots were very full. They were completely full with just trailers. The first one I went to ended up being that they, a police officer's pulling over somebody here. Good times. It ends up being the first stop. They ended up having refrigeration issues, and he was saying that that they were concerned about their refrigeration unit, but that's the reason why they had so many reefer trucks out there that were running, reefer trailers that were out there in the parking lot. Because I saw multiples when I pulled in, and there were a bunch of trailers in the dock that were piggybacked, so there was only one dock available open. And then when I got to the second location, they had trailers that were piggybacked too. This is one of those things where you need to move out the trailers if they're not doing anything. There needs to be someone that comes and picks up those trailers and moves them out, because it serves zero purpose to the Sam's Club if you have to move them out all the time. And if they're barricaded and stopped, it's not like you're doing a whole lot with your space efficiently if your docks are all full up on these trailers. So someone needs to come by and pick up these trailers so that way the dock space is open to the locations. Yes, they need to have one that's maybe that they're unloading, maybe another one that's their pallet trailer, but that should leave a couple others. And if there's a pallet trailer that fills up, move that one out and change over their empty one to become the new pallet trailer, and then have other empties. But you got to use the time efficiently. So many of these locations that were not doing that, which is highly annoying. And I don't understand the logistics behind that. But either way, I did both of those. And barely got back within my 14-hour clock. But that was my week. Few other observations for this week. I don't know what it was, but there was a lot of traffic lights that were just sitting there, that just had me sit there. Normally, when you go through and you're on the state or U.S. highway, then it's smooth sailing at night, unless there's a car that comes up on the side, in which case it will change and turn red on you. But for whatever reason, I ran into this last week. I ran into a lot of situations where the lights were turning red, even though there was no truck or no car coming up the side. And I could see a great distance down the way. There's no car coming up on the side, but the light would change. And not just change, it would sit there. I would just sit there waiting for 3 minutes. Normally at night, it will change. It will go red, just enough to slow me down, which makes me have to build up speed again. But I would just sit there, and there's no car. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, and eventually I'm looking at my clock and watching 2 or 3 minutes expire. Then I go forward, and then the next one turns red, and I don't know what was going on. I don't know why it was doing this to me, but it ended up being something that was happening quite often and highly annoying. It found that, like, I found myself constantly doing, like, you remember when in the Goonies when Mouth says to Chunk, first you got to do the truffle shuffle, and Chuck says, "Come on, come on." I was finding myself sitting there in traffic looking at the lights saying, "Come on," same way, and then it finally occurred to me that I'm Chunk. That's kind of cool. There's you know, I'm amongst friends. There's a lot worse situations I could be in, I guess. At least I didn't have to do the truffle shuffle. People would want to see that. One last thing I'll mention about that second Sam's Club I went to is when I pulled up there was another Martin truck there with a trailer that was connected. His windows were fogged up, so I was wondering if he arrived there too late and they weren't able to serve him, so he was waiting. But even though his lights were on and everything, he wasn't moving. So when I pulled up, there was a Cheetos truck that was moving out. So I went ahead and backed in, fully expecting him to come out and complain at me, in which case I would have no choice but to pull out if he was waiting. But he was way over to the side, and his windows were fogged up, so, and his curtains drawn, so I figured he wasn't sitting in there waiting. He was probably asleep or something. He never ended up coming out, so I was able to get done with that stop and get back with like 45 minutes left on my clock. I tell you, I really like the docks, the leveling docks that are tapered. So, you know, it drops down onto the back of the trailer and it's tapered. When it's less tapered, or if it's just fully square, that's an issue. But I haven't run into any fully square ones. Normally they're tapered a little bit so they can come in there, which really comes in handy because a lot of the docks I'm going to, if they have the little white or yellow lines that show you where to center up, sometimes those are off. So I will center up perfectly within the yellow lines, and then I go inside and they're like, "Yeah, you're off a little bit. You need to move over about an inch or two, otherwise the dock leveler won't drop." And I'm looking at this thinking, why is that the case? Why are they so far off? And I don't know why that would be. Maybe it's just that maybe there's an issue with the padding gets shifted at some point in time, or I don't know. But it's really annoying when that happens, because I have to go back out of the truck or back around to the truck and pull it forward and then back up again to center it up on the dock. And it would be so nice if it was just lined up to begin with. So one of the things I'm starting to look for as I'm backing up is where I'm starting to try to line myself up on the trailer, the part that's hanging down that ends up lifting up to lay on top, because I'll look at that as I'm on the approach. That's one of the things I'll look at when I line up to see if it's lined up, centered in those marks, because if it's not, I'll have to adjust. Anyway, oh, one other thing I'll mention, that on my first Sam's Club on my Friday, they were so loaded up that because of the refrigeration issues, he asked if I could take a trailer and pull it out. Well, I said, sure, no problem. But then I went and looked at it. It wasn't a Walmart trailer. I don't know our policy on that, but if it's not our trailer, I don't think I should move it. That was the policy under Schneider. Don't move a trailer unless it's yours, unless it's a Schneider trailer. In which case I can move a Schneider trailer, but I can't move anyone else's. So if I needed to move it, it wasn't on me. So I ended up having to tell him no, I couldn't do that. Another thing I'll mention is when I got to the very last Sam's Club of the day, I arrived there at 5:55 a.m. And ends up being that the guy that later, the forklift driver, he ended up going in at the same time as me, same time as me, going in the gate along with me. And the guy that let us in, he was another forklift driver who was complaining that a bunch of people just, and I said, "How you doing today?" He says, "It'd be great if everybody showed up on time." So apparently he was annoyed because people were not showing up for their work time, and it ends up being that one of the guys that unloaded me was a forklift driver that if I would have arrived there at 4, I would have had to wait for him, unless somebody else would have taken care of me, which they were like, "No, it's this guy." Well, another guy that ended up going in at the same time as us, he says, you want me to pull for you? And I'm like, please, please, please pull. But he says, no, it's all right. You do what you need to, because they realized they were running behind. He says, I'll run it. That was annoying because I was already there, and you had a guy that was willing to run it. So it would have been nice if you would have done that, but that was dumb. So anyway, the only other note I'll have really on that was employees kept coming in and ringing the doorbell over and over again, which means that it was extremely annoying. It ended up being that it was early morning hours on a holiday, so everybody was probably just slow to arrive. But every time that somebody rings the doorbell, these are employees. They have to run over. They have to stop unloading me and go and let somebody in. It'd be nice if they had a keyless entryway that an employee could use to get themselves in, or require all employees to go in the front door. Because I know it's no big deal to Sam's Club to have an employee go in there and letting people in, unless you're understaffed, or it means that the main person that's letting people in is the same person that's operating a forklift that's going slow because they're taking everything the other side of the store. So that's really annoying. On that note, the employees of Sam's Club usually have to, what the policy is that if you pull up a trailer, they're supposed to push down this thing that puts a lock that grabs your ICC bumper. Then you're supposed to turn in your key to them, or you're supposed to unhook your trailer from the tractor before they'll unload you. To me, that is an okay policy if you are not there with them managing the load. For Walmart employees and Walmart trailer drivers, you're supposed to stay inside and manage the load. So as long as I stay in there with you, you should be allowed to do that, which is fine. Which should be fine, as long as I'm not going out there to the tractor. When I even stand in there and tell them, I'm with you, I'm not leaving, I still need to have your keys, which is annoying because if that employee walks away to do something else, I have to hunt down that employee or tell them I need to get my key back. Then they show up there with a grin on their face saying, yeah, sorry, that's okay, I was at the side of the store. I'm like, yeah, well, now I've been waiting for you. So that just is a time chew up, at the end of the day. I understand their policy and want to be safe about it, but as long as the employee is staying there with you to manage the load and not going back out there to the trailer, because what's to say that I don't have another key on me? I could give you my key, but then turn around like when I was with Schneider, I had 2 keys. I could go back out there, and if I wanted to be annoying, I could have, done something else to my tractor, turned it on and pulled forward, unless it was hooked onto the back of my trailer. So I understand their policies are for safety of the employees, but it's still a little bit annoying when it's going to grab hold of your trailer and they still take your keys. I'm sure there's a reason behind this, like maybe someone forgot to lock in at some point, or didn't lock in properly, or still a driver pulled forward and it shook the back of the trailer and that made an employee fall or something. If there's a safety reason, I'm sure, but it's annoying when you follow the rules and you stay there to manage the load and they take your keys from you and then disappear. So the only other thing that's really annoying is when, the pallets have to be stacked this way to get in the back of an 8-foot trailer. So that means 3.5 feet one direction, 4 feet the other way, and they'll stagger them. So sometimes like this, sometimes they'll just stack up multiples, and then there'll be more pallets on the skinny side than the other side. But this is annoying though, from a perspective of a driver, because they have to pull in, pull it out, turn around, grab the pallet, and then leave with it. But I understand because they got to get 13 rows of pallets on there. So it's just another one of those things that chews up, 30 seconds or so. But whatever. What am I going to do, right? That's really the only update I have for this week. Sorry you've had the elevated noise from this, but I figured while I'm sitting here waiting on the guy to come out here and repair my tire, might as well do this update. So next episode, you'll end up hearing about this. How things went with this week. Good times. And thanks for watching.